Episode 39 of Beyond the Blast Doors, where you get to listen to the finished product, but Jesse has to survive through the countless times we have to restart just to make it right for you to enjoy. Same familiar faces. Jesse, David, we're missing David G. He's out traveling the country right now, but it is a new environment. This is the new studio that we're in right now, and we're so glad that we can share this with you. There's going to be modifications over the next several weeks, but this is good enough to get an episode on the road. So we're talking a lot of things. We're going to be highlighting continued struggles at the box office with Solo. Ron Howard talks Darth Maul. We're going to get some E3 news with Jesse because he's been following that. You know, we've gotten some new information about Clone Wars era content, and also the Han Solo stuff that dropped recently as well. So we'll touch on that. And also we have a very fun fan comment question to tap. So we'll do all that and more. But first, I want to talk about a story that StarWarsNewsNet.com just dropped. And it was talking to Thomas Kane at a Comic-Con. This individual was having a conversation and describes Tom Kane as hesitant, but did say that there are 9 movies at various points in production right now in the Star Wars world. And so, Jesse, I got to ask you, because we know that we have Benioff and Weiss making a series of movies, so that's assumed to be more than a trilogy. We have Rian Johnson, as far as we know, still working on a trilogy. And then we have a movie that we would expect to get in 2020. That would be a standalone. So right now, we think we know as many as 7 to 8 of these movies. Is this something that we're learning that's new, or is this reconfirming what I just rattled off, what we already know?
Reconfirming what we kind of already know. We know that there's a lot of movies, on the basically the listing there.
Right.
But I do think possibly some of them that could be canceled. Just kind of depends. I mean, a lot of Solo backlash going on.
There is a lot of Solo backlash, and I'm glad that it's not. I'm glad that not a whole lot is going to Ron Howard, because I think that he was kind of like a savior for the movie. Yeah. I think the movie itself was good. The movie, to me, should have been $700,000 at the box office.
I thoroughly enjoyed the movie as a whole. I mean,
it was a lot of fun. But the thing is, we're also dealing with the controversy with Kathleen Kennedy. I guess that's the point where I'm trying to get to. Is you're talking about the controversy the last 6 months. Now there's rumors that Kathleen Kennedy could be out of the Star Wars world by September. So nothing confirmed. That's just the rumors. Realistically, despite Solo's struggles, you still had the previous 3 movies make more than $4.5 billion. Yeah. So I'm very hard-pressed to think that she goes. I would be curious to see if she becomes more of the logistical person, and then you'd bring someone in to helm the creative process. And I'm not saying a Pablo Hidalgo. That's where I think you can put a Dave Filoni, where you move him up the ladder and you give him control of the Star Wars storytelling over all facets, whether it's TV, video games, movies, books, novels, even the mobile games. He's the guy in charge of all of that. So that's just what I'd like to see. But like Jesse said, I'm in agreement. I think this is kind of just reconfirming what we know right now. But it is great to hear Tom Kane kind of, reconfirm that there's all these projects in development. He is definitely a fan favorite, having voiced Yoda in Star Wars Rebels and in the Clone Wars series as well. Let's go ahead and dive into real talk, because Solo is the first topic that we're going to touch upon. And again, David, Jesse, and I are going to be doing a in-depth spoiler review next week, we hope, within the next 5 days. It's just been chaotic ever since the movie dropped, with moving and people getting more responsibilities at work. But for right now, we're just going to talk about the box office, because, everyone knows at this point, $103 million. That was the opening weekend for Solo back on May 25th, had that extended weekend. Right now, $339 million global. It's just under $200 million domestically, and of course, you can do the math to find out the rest happening in the foreign box office. Clearly, that is underperforming what we expect for a Star Wars movie. I don't think that I ever thought the movie was going to cross $1 billion because of the divisiveness that happened from The Last Jedi. But I remember a lot of people being surprised that Rogue One crossed the $1 billion mark, because we thought that, with it being a standalone story, it wouldn't have the gravitas or the connection to the general fandom to bring that kind of dollars, and then it did. So I think the fact that everyone's looking at those 3 movies before it, they're looking at Solo as this colossal failure, where a lot of companies now are just saying, well, it's a marketing thing. But Jesse, you see these continued struggles at the box office. Is it because this isn't a Is it fans retaliating because of The Last Jedi? Is it the poor marketing, or is it is a combination of both, or is there a different factor that we're not considering?
I think there's a lot of different things to look at when it comes to this. Again, personally, I enjoyed the movie quite a bit. And, obviously, as David teased, we'll get more into that, next week with our spoiler episode. I think the issue is that, we talked about this months ago about them dropping another Star Wars movie basically right after we just had
6
one.
months, yep.
So I think it was too soon for one. It was also competing with Deadpool, I believe.
It was competing with Deadpool and Infinity War.
Infinity War was still in the theaters. So you had two, Marvel movies and everything in the theater at the time.
Theater?
Yeah.
Keep saying theater. You fancy pants.
Leave my Midwest.
I think your point
around.
about the box office is the factor that I credit the struggles to the most, because I've always said that I thought Solo and Star Wars should live in December. Just ever since Force Awakens, December was where it needed to be. And the fact of the matter is, this Lucasfilm, this true Disney product, had to go up against another Disney product, which is Infinity War. And then Deadpool 2, you knew you were going to pull some money away from. Not as much of a factor, because the difference in the audience, right? The rated R having a factor with Deadpool's success as well. But you don't have these problems if you just leave Star Wars in December. And I wonder if this was a strategy in the boardroom to see, could Star Wars pull off 2 Star Wars movies in 6 months? Because with all these standalone movies, and you have the Benioff and Weiss series, and you have the trilogy with Rian Johnson, and you're going to want more stories to tell, the Solo movie, for example, sets up two different kind of sequels that they could go off into. You wouldn't be able to tell those stories for another 6 to 8 years, because if you're doing that one movie a year, you're going to have to really prioritize which one comes next. It's not an issue if you can generate 2 to 3 Star Wars movies a year. I think Star Wars fans want to have quality, and they want the build-up of a year to get psyched for that next movie. I think you can groom the Star Wars fans to expect a high-quality, well-told, fun adventure story in a year. But you finish The Last Jedi, you wait forever to tell the fan base that the next movie is coming, which the diehards like us, we knew that Solo was coming, but the casual fan had no idea. And so when you position this movie to fail immediately by putting it in May, because it's not a saga film, it is a side story, and you have it go against Infinity War, which there was no doubt ever that thing was going to hit $2 billion.
Well, you mentioned the Rogue One, went just a little over, $1 billion. The big difference between these two side story films is that Rogue One introduced brand new characters for the most part, and a few side role characters that we had seen throughout the original, Mon Mothma and stuff like that.
Right.
I probably got that name wrong, didn't I?
What? Mon Mothma.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
You're a Star Wars canon junkie. Don't question yourself. You know these things.
I know. Anyway, the nice thing about Rogue was that it was answering, kind of fulfilling that big old plot hole with the Death Star.
Right.
So I think that got people excited. Like, oh, hey, we're going to find out how, this went down. With Solo, you were dealing with an icon, in Hollywood history, Han Solo. So I think fans were hesitant because obviously it's not Harrison Ford. Obviously, they're still upset about some of the decision choices in The Last Jedi. And then you're introducing this, basically younger versions of these characters that we, many of them grew up with, so they're hesitant and they're unsure about the story. They just got what most people are deeming kind of a bad movie, and now they're going to follow it up with another bad movie. And then on the flip side of that, you've got the people who are just completely out there to destroy the actors, actresses, and Lucasfilm, over, Last Jedi and everything, and they're being extremely toxic about it. So I think, yes, on some levels, the boycott, if you will, did impact this movie, and I think it's really unfortunate because Ron Howard, I think, did a really fantastic job saving this movie.
Oh, absolutely.
and for what it is, the characters in it are fantastic. I enjoyed every single character, even Aaron Aldrich's Han Solo.
I thought Alden nailed it as
Yeah.
Han. I didn't like L3.
A little out there, but there was moments with that that made me laugh, and it was like she provided the right kind of humor, and we'll get more into the
We'll get more
certain
into
points,
that.
but,
Just to kind of wrap this conversation up, though, because it looks like Han's the solo Star Wars story has been pulled from some IMAX theaters already, and it's not going to have that long of a run in theaters just because it's not making the money. I'm curious to see what this does in DVD and Blu-ray sales. I wonder if it's a thing. I think a lot of fans are waiting to buy it, and I think a lot of fans are waiting to see this movie on like cable or on demand to where they can watch it in the comfort of their own home and judge for themselves. I think a lot of the revenue this movie was going to get will be lost to that because a lot of people feel burned.
Like a fall Blu-ray DVD combo release.
Yeah, and I just want to be careful because I think there's a lot of people who liked The Last Jedi and a lot of people who didn't. And whatever you think is totally fine. We shouldn't be dismissive of anyone who thinks whatever they think of these properties and whatever they think of
constructive criticism.
Right, and whatever you think of Solo, it's the same thing. There's going to be people who liked it, people who didn't like it. I think there's no denying that it's a divisive time right now for the Star Wars fandom. And so what we need to focus on is the fact that we're going to come to this table, for example, here on the show, and we'll have different opinions, but what we recognize is that at the end of the day, we're at this table because we love Star Wars, and the difference in opinion is what makes it so fun to speculate and to create theories and to pretend what could be and what couldn't be. So let's celebrate the fandom. Let's not tear each other apart. Let's go to the next topic because Ron Howard, who is a great Star Wars director and has a great Star Wars movie on his resume, recently talked about going about that spoiler at the very end of the movie, that special cameo, which was Darth Maul in the hologram. And I loved it.
I absolutely loved it because
Go ahead.
We get tidbits. So basically, I'm sorry, it's been out for a while.
You don't have to apologize. Just go.
Yeah, the Clone Wars cartoon has been around for a while. We know that Darth Maul survived his first duel with Obi-Wan and the Phantom Menace. He goes on to basically cause mass chaos on Mandalore, my people. Just it really does. I mean, we're talking, at the end, this is close to the end of the Clone Wars and everything, and he stirs up just mass fighting on this planet. That's further, told upon a little bit in the Ahsoka book because she actually returned to help assist the 501st on Mandalore, and that's where Ahsoka and Rex fake their deaths and everything, and escape off into the galaxy, and we don't see them again until the Rebels cartoon.
Right.
And of course, obviously, Maul plays a very
Key role in that series.
Key role in that series as well. So with this cameo, what's nice about it is we get that in between there. It's after the Clone Wars. It's before Rebels. He's obviously returned to the crime underworld, and he is...
Well, he's in charge of it.
He's
And that's the whole point, is
he's
he's in charge of that crime syndicate. And that was kind of teased at the end of Clone Wars. And what I like about it is not just on the execution, because I like everything. I like the Grimace. I like the Sam Witwer voicing. I like the Ray Park playing the physical version of Maul. I like the fact that he used the Force and ignited the lightsaber, because that meant I was right, that we would see a lightsaber in this movie. But what I also like for it is what you're touching upon, which is the connective tissue to the rest of the canon.
Yes.
When you watch Clone Wars, when you watch Star Wars Rebels, you are rewarded by Ron Howard's Solo: A Star Wars Story, because you're getting that connective tissue. And that's what we talk about all the time. We want things to count. If we invest the time in TV shows and the novels and the comics, we want to see that tie into the movies. And we want it to be apparent, because there's a way you can do it up front that excites the canon junkies like us, and excites the lay movie-going fan who only sees that movie once or twice in the theaters, once a Star Wars movie comes out. So I thought it was really fantastic, and what I thought was interesting was Darth Maul wasn't always the assumed person to cameo there. Jabba the Hutt was kind of the front runner for a long time.
And Boba Fett, too. Jabba and Boba.
Right, but then with Ron's research, and this is according to Ron Howard, he just said this made the most sense. And then he later went on to say, there's another story to be told in this world, finding out a syndicate war, finding out all these gangs and underworld people battling it out, which
I don't know if we'll see it on film, but I would love a book.
There's a rumor that we'll talk about later on the show that if it is true, if that certain bounty hunter movie is true, I wonder if that could be the premise. We'll talk about that later. Let's go ahead and jump down. Anything else you wanted to say about the Maul cameo? I don't think we'll see more of him in a future movie. I think it's just a nice tidbit to throw in there and let fans know that he did survive Phantom Menace.
Overall, I loved it. And, we can kind of talk more about that in detail and thoughts and things that we saw after that cameo was revealed.
Can do it next week. Let's go ahead and jump to the next topic, which is the Hollywood Reporter saying that Disney is really considering just releasing one Star Wars film a year going forward.
Yay.
This kind of touches back to the first topic. So nothing confirmed. Obviously, we haven't heard Disney say that, and still some of the actions of Disney suggest that Star Wars could be a multi-movie franchise per year. You know what I'm saying? But I think we both hear that report, and we're excited about it because Star Wars has proven just in this Disney era that it's more successful if you put it in December and you allow fans a whole year to cool off from that movie release and then regain their excitement for the next movie through strong marketing. Not what you saw with Solo, A Star Wars Story, but what you saw with Force Awakens and Rogue One and The Last Jedi, where you were getting that out
really strong marketing
a half year out at the least, and you were getting excited for that next film. So I think that's all we really need to talk about that.
Yeah.
But Colin Trevorrow would be the final topic of Real Talk on this episode, and he's talking about his experience with being removed from Episode 9. He was originally slated as the director of that movie. And a pretty PC statement in a sense, because I think Colin Trevorrow knows that he's still working. He's still going to be sought after. He still has chances to work with Disney in the future. But basically says, hey, I came up with my story. I got to tell it to George Lucas. That was a dream come true, and it just didn't work out. And so basically, I'm moving on. I think that, we have been pretty vocal about wanting to see Colin Trevorrow stay at the helm of Episode 9. Our most popular work is known because of what we talk about with him and trying to keep Luke Skywalker alive for his Episode 9. But I don't know, Jesse, you hear these thoughts. Are you happy with it? Does it give you hope that maybe we get a Colin Trevorrow Star Wars movie down the road?
I would like to, but I kind of feel like potentially there was definitely some heated discussions, I think, between Colin and the rest of the board and everything. He definitely had. I would love to see what he had planned for that movie. Mm-hmm. And I think as much as he was fighting for it, I just think that probably maybe the personality clash, at least between him and moving forward. I believe in this article, he kind of touches like Mark Hamill, was definitely kind of on board and. Right now, nobody's like, well, is Mark going to show up in 9 still?
Well, you think he has to be a Force ghost, and I think if they omit him from Episode 9, it's a huge mistake. But also, I'm a diehard OT fan. Yeah. And I think you're a diehard OT fan too, and I think that there's a lot of people who are just sequel trilogy lovers who say we don't really need the old people around. We want to see these new characters. And that goes into a greater issue that I have with the new movies that we don't have to dive into now. Again, if you like them, that's wonderful, and I'm glad that it allows you to be part of this fandom. And if you don't think that they're your favorite Star Wars films, then maybe you and I could go out for a cup of coffee. That's going to go do it for Real Talk. Real Talk, the segment of the show where if it's on the screen or related to anything on the screen, we're going to talk about it there. But next is Pages, Pixels, Pieces, the segment brought to you by The Fantasy Shop in Maplewood, Missouri. Proud to have our local comic book shop as our official sponsor. Comics, collectibles, toys, Magic the Gathering, and board games. The Fantasy Shop in St. Louis, proudly serving St. Louis since 1981. And my goodness, so many comics that have come out in the last couple of weeks that are just really exciting. The Last Jedi, number 2 and number 3 comic adaptations. Mm-hmm. I went on a big rant. I did not like the Rogue One version. Love this because there's so many there's a few moments, I should say, in the 2nd and 3rd issue with the Last Jedi adaptation where you're getting inside Luke's mindset and how he's talking about like how there's this great interlogue where he's like, I went into isolation, but what it did was it cost me, the people that I love. And then Leia awakens, and he triggers, they have that, twin connection again. And that would have been something great to have in the movie. Probably would have been very appropriate to have in the movie. Yeah. And so I enjoy exploring the relationships there. So I would recommend those two. I would recommend the Last Jedi adaptation for you. You also get Star Wars 49 in there, 50 coming out, Last Jedi number 3, or 50 is about to come out, I should say, next week. But you have Dr. Aphra as well, some annual issues. Lando Double or Nothing is a great comic that you should definitely look into. This is Donald Glover's version of Lando, and it is a fun extended comic issue. So it's like double the pages, I think, of a regular issue. And it's just a fun adventure that you go on with him, and L3's in there as well. And I kind of like her a little bit better there in that situation. But I think the comic that we want to spend the time talking about right now is Darth Vader 17 that just came out. And that is because we get the conclusion of this Mon Cala assault that we're getting, where the Empire is up top bombarding the surface. You have this war happening on the planet. You have Vader trying to find Lee Char. You have the Inquisitors trying to track down these stray Jedi, or these followers of Master Bar on the planet. Jesse, we're seeing Star Destroyers just beat the hell out of the planet surface with laser cannons. I don't think I've ever seen an orbital assault really displayed like this before. Have you?
Yeah, so this orbital strike, as you're reading through the comic and everything, okay, this isn't just like, your typical like artillery bombardment. Like, this is actually like a planet destroying. It's like think of it like this: like multiple nukes going off on our planet would just devastate our environment and atmosphere. Kind of like how you get that single reactor fire from the Death Star.
And that's what we're getting, because these
is essentially the same thing.
These Star Destroyers are just pounding the surface with these. It looks like they have like just a large cannon that's under the ship that I wasn't aware of. Like, I thought that Star Destroyers only had like the cannons on like the top and bottom. I didn't know it was like this like Death Star light cannon that could fire from, it looks like, the middle of the ship.
So essentially, if you don't know anything about Mon Cala is actually a water planet.
Right.
I mean, you can learn this through the Clone Wars, just through the expanded lore. Like in the comic, they're like, the oceans are starting to boil. This is a planet that's filled with basically people who live in the water. So, like, in short, I mean, billions.
You're getting a lot of fish sticks.
Yeah. Billions of people are dying as this is going on. And it's just like, man.
I think I thought that was just really cool, because I've never seen Star Destroyers behave that way, so that was really cool to me. But obviously, what this issue is about was tracking down Bar, and how he's able to use Order 66 to his advantage with these clone troopers betraying a lot of the Inquisitors, and then ultimately we get this duel with him and Vader, and it's thrilling, and you kind of get this idea that this Jedi might have sacrificed an entire species to give hope to the galaxy. And I don't want to go into too many specifics, because there are a few other surprises that you'll experience as you read this comic. But what do you think about that? A Jedi sacrificing basically a planet worth of life.
I would actually almost, the best way to describe Master Bar, after like once it's revealed that it's him and you learn everything that he's done, he's no longer a Jedi. He's not a Sith. I would say, unofficially, you would actually label him as a gray Jedi.
See, I hate that.
Light and dark.
I hate that title, because if he's not a Jedi, then he can't be a gray Jedi. He would just be like something else. And you're not the only one that uses this. A lot of people are like the gray Jedi. I'm like, no, you're either a Jedi, a Sith, or something else. You can't be like a. It's not like soda here, Diet Jedi. That doesn't work well. I'm just saying.
Well, yeah, but.
Did that final battle work for you?
I kind of wanted just a little bit more, with it. Are we gonna do spoilers for this one?
I mean, I don't know. We can throw the spoiler. I mean, yeah, we're doing spoilers. So if you don't want to hear the spoiler, then fast forward 2 minutes. It
would have been nice if Bar would have been, instead of actually calling Vader, if he would have called him Skywalker. Just a little salt in the wound.
Way more powerful.
Because I think that would have been like, I know who you are. I know what you did, kind of thing. Like,
right.
I think that really would have added to the moment more. But I mean, as is, it's still a 10 out of 10 comic.
Absolutely.
Without a doubt.
We say it every week. Charles Soule's Vader run is the best so far. We do have a giveaway we have 9 comic books that we're going to give away. And we're going to make you wait a little bit longer, but just so you know, that is coming up. We have a really good hashtag for that. But first, I want to get into EA at E3.
Oh, boy.
Star Wars Battlefront 2 receives a lot of Clone Wars era content over the next few months. That's the headline that we got from our buddies over at StarWarsNewsNet.com. And we've recently gotten the solo updates where you get to play like the Kessel Mine and a few other maps, and you get to play the solo version of these characters. Jesse, first, I want your feedback specifically on the news that we're going to get a lot of Clone Wars era stuff for the game.
Okay, so I don't just do cosplay in Star Wars. I am an avid video gamer. Okay, so I know EA just in general gets a lot of bashing just because of their company practices. I watched EA play at E3 simply because I love Battlefield, and I was hoping for some Battlefront news, which we did get. So they start off this conference, this little moment and everything. I thought it was kind of nice because they apologized for how this game launched. Okay, and it's really frustrating because I feel like DICE is a really fantastic studio. They brought us Battlefield and everything. A really great game. And overall, Battlefront 2 is fantastic. Even before they fixed the microtransactions, closed them down. Single player mode, fantastic. Gameplay generally pretty good. So I thought it took a lot of guts to get up there in front of hundreds of people and admit that they made a mistake, that they are dedicated to bringing more content and fixing this to kind of earn that back. With that said, they talk about the Han Solo season, which basically gives us two young Han Solo parents' cosmetic skins, which is Han at the beginning of the Solo movie, and then you've got Han when he's part of Beckett's crew. And you also get a young Lando as well, which is really nice. They bring back an old game mode, Extraction. Basically, you've got this cargo box that one team's trying to push to the other point, and so kind of good. It's like tug of war kind of thing. So it was really cool. Nice tease. We get a new map and everything. Visually, it looked a lot of fun. I played it a little bit. And then they go into the Clone Wars stuff. And of course, I'm like, yes, because this is what Battlefront, the original Battlefront games, were made off of, was the Clone Wars and everything. So they kick it off with announcing, some new heroes. We're getting Grievous. We're getting General Grievous as a hero, followed up by General Kenobi himself, who's never set foot in a Battlefront game.
It's going to be great.
We're also getting Count Dooku, which makes me happy because Christopher Lee is one of my favorite actors, and
also Dooku is
saddens me that he's gone.
Dooku is really underappreciated because you only get to really learn how great of a villain he is through the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
And so if you just go by what you see in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, he's just this crusty old man, but there's so much depth to that character.
Yeah. And then of course we get Anakin Skywalker to play with. And that's really exciting too. For me, what actually got me more excited was that we're getting a Geonosis map. We're also getting a couple different game modes. One sounded pretty similar to one involved destroying another capital ship.
Okay, so kind of like what we had in the original 2 games.
Yes, I'm like, okay, if there's that merger of space combat and boarding another enemy ship, I'm all over it because that was fun.
Yeah.
And just in general, Clone Wars content, which obviously I can kind of already guess because about a month ago they did a bunch of cosmetic appearance skins for the different troopers and everything. I'm kind of expecting the same when we hit this Clone Wars season. You'll see color variations and throughout the trooper armor and everything. So it was pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Now the most awkward moment about EA at E3 was before they got up there to talk about Battlefront, and the host randomly spotted a game developer.
Right.
And unfortunately, this is my failure at homework, catching the name of the studio. But she kind of puts this guy on the spot, and I hear you're working on a Star Wars game, and he's like, you can tell this was an unscripted thing because he just went full on awkward. And in a roundabout way, he announced as an RPG game, like Jedi Fallen Empire,
Yes.
along those lines, which is exciting in itself. But that little stigma towards EA for me is, are you going to cancel it and close the studio?
I don't know. I'm not too familiar with that. I did hear about the game. I was hearing also some reports that it might be like an open world type of thing.
Yeah, it's just, they last year's E3 they teased a open world Star Wars game, and it was through Visceral Studios, and it was like
Titanfall developer. Wouldn't that be it? Titanfall would be the name of the company that did that got put on the spot here. I don't know. I'm trying to do the Google search for you right now. Or maybe EA did. Okay, so Titanfall is going to be developing, but it's here, let me pull it up here.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
I hate not having the name.
Yeah, kind of awkward, but good to hear that this stuff is happening. As far as coming from E3, and it's also great to hear the passion. I still would rather like to see an Ahsoka and Captain Rex to play as characters in Battlefront 2. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But going through
it could still happen.
While EA has several Star Wars games currently in development, they've only released information on one entitled Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. So it still is an EA game, but I think Titanfall is going to be involved with that project to some extent. Of course, that's according to Yahoo, according to the article I just pulled up. So let's go ahead, and before we end up this segment, we got to give you away free comic books. So we're giving away 9 comic books in this batch right now, and all you have to do is be subscribed to our channel, comment down below with the hashtag what do we have here? That's my best Lando. That was terrible. But what do we have here? Hashtag what do we have here? It's a Lando quote. That's what you have to comment down below. We're going to share this on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. All you have to do is be following us and comment down below. Share it with your friends. I mean, you have a chance to win free comic books, and so do they. 9 comic books, 9 times 3 is 27. It's ultimately going to be about $38 worth of comic books because we're going to give you those books. We're going to bag them and board them in Mylar, so that way they're in pristine condition when they arrive to you, and you can display those, or you can just have really nice care for those books. So 9 comic books, might even throw something in an extra, but hashtag what do we have here? Comment down below, and also go ahead and let us know what you think about the news out of E3. Jesse, in one breath, gave you everything you needed to know about Star Wars.
I follow E3 closely.
At E3. Stash it or blast it. Round robin style here. It's just the two of us. We're going to go pretty fast. First topic is Stash it or blast it. We should have gotten more Han in the movie Solo, where Solo was in the Navy learning to be a pilot instead of on the battleground. Stash it or blast it.
Blast it.
I'm going to stash it because I want to see him flying a plane and then him getting kicked out. We just saw him in the trenches with Beckett. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
Do you oppose that?
Without going into more detail and everything, like I would have liked seeing just a little bit more of that, but Ron Howard kind of explained why and everything, and I had to agree with Ron on it.
Fair enough. John Kasdan reveals Anthony Ingruber auditioned for Solo. Did Lucasfilm choose the wrong character or wrong actor to play Solo?
I'm gonna blast this one as well. I didn't want an impressionist.
That's exactly how I feel.
Great impression.
Mm-hmm.
If the mannerisms also weren't there, which you saw hints of that with Aaron's character.
Alden Ehrenreich, you are tremendous.
I can't say it more, but I mean, it's nothing against Anthony.
I'm blasting the hell out of it. We didn't want an impressionist. Number 3 in Stash or Blast, the final topic. THR reports that James Mangold is writing and will direct a Star Wars standalone movie centered around Boba Fett. Stash or Blast this report.
I'm going to stash it. Without a doubt, I'm going to stash it because it's Boba Fett. But I'd like to say it's not a confirmed movie yet. Mm-hmm. Nothing's confirmed until Disney or Lucasfilm comes out and says, hey, we're making this movie. With that being said, James Mangold, he did Logan.
Mm-hmm.
That talk about make me cry at the end of a movie, bawl my eyes out kind of thing. I'm down.
How great would it be if, because I'm going to stash this too, but how great would it be if he was doing the sequel to Solo and it was the crime syndicates going up against each other? It's like 7 different bounty hunters that are all involved with this thing, and maybe you get a little bit more Maul sprinkled in there as well because he's kind of like the one in charge, and maybe we can find out how he gets mutinied and then he's in hiding there on Dathomir in Star Wars Rebels.
Yeah.
So maybe we get that connective tissue. So that's going to do it for Sasha Blasted. Again, that's just the headlines that we don't have time to go in depth with, but we want to talk about. No Staying on Target this week. Again, we're going to wait for that to be a thing where the three of us get together and we'll debate a topic. And of course, if you have a topic that you want us to debate in Staying on Target, go ahead and comment down below with that as well. Fan Comlink. Let's tap the Fan Comlink. I'm getting excited because it's from Sheev Palpy, Emperor Palpatine, who is our Patreon supporter and proud supporter of the show, just in many ways. He's awesome. He asks us, do you think that Maul will fight Darth Vader in a future film? Because in Star Wars Rebels Twilight Apprentice, Darth Maul says he cannot defeat Vader alone. He says it as if he knows from experience. Jesse, do we see this on the big screen, or do we get a story like this in comic book or novel form? Because I think that's a story that could be told. You want to see Vader and Maul go at it. It was, to me, I was freaking out when I saw them so close in that episode of Rebels that Sheep Palpy's talking about.
Well, again, this kind of goes into like the last time we see Darth Maul on the Clone Wars cartoon is after he's fought with Darth Sidious, and Sidious is blasting him with lightning and basically torturing him. So there's a little bit of a time gap there. So we don't know what happened from that point to where he's referenced in the Ahsoka book. Obviously, he returns to cause more trouble.
Right.
And then, we get Rebels, and now we've got Solo into the factor there. So we know that, okay, at some point he obviously got away from Sidious.
And he gets in charge of all these crime syndicates.
Yes. So possibly, or because of that time, period in there, maybe there was some sort of interaction or even torture from Vader to Maul himself. I mean, considering that both Vader and Maul are, cybernetic,
It would be interesting. What I just posed to you about that possible Boba Fett movie where we get to see Maul get mutinied and it has to go into hiding? What if Vader is the cause of Maul having to hide in Rebels, right? Because when we pick him back up in Rebels, he's hiding there on Dathomir. Not like where we found him in Clone Wars where he's hiding and he's like this spider freak thing. He had to go into hiding again, and he fell from his supposed grace as leader of all these, leader of this crime syndicate. So I think it'd be interesting if you could have a thing where Maul tries to take down Vader to regain the trust and admiration of the Emperor, and then Vader is just too powerful and just beats Maul down, and he narrowly escapes. Somehow.
Extremely plausible. I mean, we know that Palpatine likes to throw some pretty wicked test at Vader, assassination
It seems like almost
and,
every issue of the Star Wars comic is Emperor trying to kill Vader,
I mean, minus like the last, couple issues since we've been on Mon Cala
right,
and everything. But, for a while there, it was like, man, it was like, well, yeah, every other issue, it was some sort of like
test
or attempt to, on Vader. So, yeah, why not? I'd like to see it.
Well, what do you think about Sheep Palpy's question? Because I think it's a tremendous one. Will we ever see Darth Maul and Darth Vader duel? That's a question that, I don't know, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, you never would have asked yourself. But by bringing Darth Maul back into the canon, back to life in Clone Wars, you open up so many possibilities. And the idea that Anakin, who becomes Vader, who was originally the Padawan of Qui-Gon Jinn, can go back to his killer and take him down. There's a way to make that poetic, I think. It's better articulated than what I just did, but I think it'd be really cool if you could have a Vader going against a Maul. I'm sure, can't we make that happen in a video game? We need to make that happen in a video game.
It probably did.
Comment down below if you have an opinion on that question, and that's going to do it for episode 39. Kind of a quick episode, hitting the big topics in the news right now, and we just want to say thank you so much for joining us and being patient with us the last month or so. We're just trying to get our bearings straight as we get into this new studio, but I don't know. I like it. What do you think?
I like it. It's a lot roomier. Trust me, it is a lot roomier. Like, I don't feel like I have a shelf that's gonna lean over and crush me with a Millennium Falcon.
I used to basically have to sit in Jesse's lap, and he wasn't a fan of that because I would get hot and he would get hot and bothered, and it was just a mess.
Yeah, it was
so
just a real mess.
More space. It's a little cooler. A better way to display the decor, and hopefully a way to create more content for you to enjoy. So thank you so much for joining us. And don't forget, comment down below, hashtag, what do we have here? Win yourself as many as 9 free comic books. because that's what we want to do. We want to talk about Star Wars, have a fun conversation, and then we want to give, because it's fun. It's fun to give away free comic books. It's like why people come back and stuff. You know, it's
free stuff.
It's thanking you for investing in our Star Wars conversation. That's what it's all about. So thank you again, and may the Force be with you. If you haven't already, go ahead and smash that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. You can watch other videos just like this one right now by checking out these videos on your screen. And by the way, thanks for checking out Beyond the Blast Doors.